She's also just a spoiled, entitled, narcissistic brat who was perfectly willing, because she's not well, she might be stupid, but she's not so dumb that she didn't realize that by, for example, coming out and saying that all Trump supporters deserve to suffer for like, she's smart enough to know that, of course, that's going to upset a large portion of the potential audience for this project that I'm on.
Rachel is literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim. And that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, she acts like her life is so bad.
I truly do believe that. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings.
Buckle up, folks, because the drama surrounding Disney's Snow White has just reached a whole new level. Leading lady Rachel Zegler is at the center of a growing controversy involving her co-star Gal Gadot, all while early box office projections for the film continue to sink.
The movie that nobody wanted to see, and I mean that seriously, nobody wants to see this movie. Ticket pre-sales are nowhere near what Disney was hoping for. Let's just say if you wanted to buy tickets for the 9 p.m. show tonight, wherever you are in America, you'd be just fine.
It had the lowest opening, under 50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
Could tensions between these two stars be contributing to the movie's increasingly shaky future? One particularly interesting detail recently surfaced, suggesting that the tension between the two actresses began when Rachel Zegler skipped a major event held in honor of Gal Gadot. The event, which reportedly included discussions on politically sensitive topics and international causes, was seen as a pivotal PR moment. Despite being strongly encouraged to attend, Zegler refused, reportedly uncomfortable with the nature of the topics.
Gadot is also apparently controversial because she is an Israeli who spent 2 years in the Israeli Defense Forces, a real-life Wonder Woman. She's obviously pro-Israel. And you might be wondering, wow, what's controversial about that? Well, in Hollywood, it's more popular to be anti-Israel. That's what those little pins mean right there. Those mean support Palestine and Hamas, instead of people who were actually attacked by terrorists on October the 7th.
And I'm Jewish, and we have had enough of Jew hatred. We will confront anti-Semitism, we will call it out, but we will never let it not only defeat us, but define us, because our love is stronger than their hate.
After that, Gadot's co-star, Snow White herself, Rachel Zegler, who we just showed you, tweeted this out. And always remember, free Palestine.
The studio had hoped that her appearance alongside Gadot would send a message of unity, but her absence sparked yet another wave of backlash, with many interpreting it as a deliberate slight. Tensions only escalated from there. During multiple promotional photo shoots for Snow White, insiders claim the two stars visibly clashed. Things allegedly came to a head when Zegler grew increasingly annoyed by Gadot's comments and demeanor on set, leading to a temporary pause in filming.
So now, as the movie comes out, the two biggest stars in this movie can't stand each other to the point where they can't be in the same room, which forced Disney, in their infinite wisdom, to cut back on doing a formal premiere.
At one point, Zegler even walked off the set, refusing to pose alongside her co-star. While this kind of drama may seem superficial, it creates significant headaches for the production team and adds fuel to the fire of speculation about the film's already uncertain prospects.
And one of the most basic is the responsibility to control yourself and comport yourself a certain way publicly so that you don't harm the project and thereby harm all the hundreds of other people who are working on it.
Industry insiders say the fallout is doing more than just damaging the public image of Snow White. It may be affecting Rachel Zegler's reputation within Hollywood. Word of difficult behavior spreads fast in the entertainment world, and ongoing tensions like this could influence future casting decisions.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they are scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
She is a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
Meanwhile, Gal Gadot is said to be growing increasingly frustrated that Zegler's controversial interviews have soured the promotional campaign. The studio originally planned to market the film with both stars presenting a united front, but those plans have now crumbled. Those who've seen them interact say the chemistry is simply missing, and any efforts to manufacture it feel hollow. What's more, Rachel Zegler has stood firm on her personal views, repeatedly framing the film as a moral or social statement. But that approach hasn't landed well with many potential viewers, who feel her messaging strays too far from the charm of the original story.
The latest victim of really bad ideas is finally here. The magical Disney DEI woke equity version of the 1937 classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But because the word dwarves is now apparently controversial, Disney took that part out of the movie altogether. And now the movie is just called Snow White, which would be like Disney taking lions out of Lion King or mermaids out of The Little Mermaid.
Some have even speculated that creative choices in the film were driven more by political motives than a love for the classic fairy tale. To make matters worse, the studio reportedly had to arrange several rounds of reshoots and undergo major re-edits in a desperate attempt to create a cohesive final version of the film.
Her name is Rachel Zegler. Zegler? I don't know. Zegler. Okay, there's something wrong with this person. She's also known as the star of Snow White and the Disney movie. Remember, she was out like a couple years ago being like, there's certainly not going to be a prince rescuing me. I can tell you that. And then even Disney got on its heels and they're like, we're going to reshoot the movie immediately. Like, we're going to make some changes because there was so much backlash to her arrogance and just inanity.
But, according to insiders, those efforts were repeatedly sabotaged by ongoing interruptions and creative disagreements. The ongoing friction between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot also led to more takes being required for key scenes, stretching the production schedule and driving up an already bloated budget.
This movie's cost them $200 million and counting. And instead of America being excited to take their families, I've got kids, we'd normally be excited to go see the remake of Bashful, Doc, Dopey, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, and Sneezy. Disney is looking at another woke flop with magical creatures instead of dwarves in a movie about 7 dwarves.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
In the end, editors were left trying to piece together disjointed footage that never quite flowed naturally during filming. Adding to the chaos, many promotional events that were supposed to build excitement for Snow White have been reduced or canceled altogether. The loss of these marketing opportunities only increases concerns about the film's future. And if Zegler and Gadot can't at least fake professionalism during public appearances, the resulting media mess could push even more people away when the film finally hits theaters.
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
Early ticket sales reports from different markets are painting a bleak picture, with numbers falling far short of expectations. Longtime fans of the original Disney classic feel alienated by what they see as disrespectful changes and off-putting comments from the cast.
Because has this mentality, she's not the only one, it's kind of a common mentality that, hey, the only thing that matters is how I feel. It's the only thing that matters in the world. And there are no obligations or responsibilities that I could possibly have that would outrank my own feelings.
Even compared to Disney's previous underwhelming live-action remakes, this one seems to be struggling harder to fill seats. That signals not just a dip in interest, but a deeper loss of trust from the dedicated Disney fan base that usually shows up no matter what. At the heart of the drama is a political rift between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, whose conflicting beliefs have surfaced during joint interviews. Typically, studios work hard to keep that kind of tension hidden, but this time, the drama has spilled out in full view of the public. Each new altercation, whisper, or leaked remark reinforces the image of a film torn apart by internal strife, rather than united by creative passion. The team behind the scenes is now struggling just to shift attention back to the movie itself. With the feud showing no signs of stopping, many are starting to wonder if there's any hope left for the project.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP.
After so many scrapped photo ops, rumored outbursts, and wave after wave of bad press, Snow White may be too far gone to save. PR teams are scrambling for damage control.
Every time she opens her mouth, it's crisis mode when it comes to Disney.
But when your two biggest stars can't even get along, the odds of salvaging the situation look slimmer by the day. It's becoming clear that even Disney's top brass have started to lose patience. What once seemed like a straightforward blockbuster rollout is now being recognized as one of the studio's most problematic projects in recent years.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
With that realization comes a quiet hope that once the movie finally finishes its possibly short-lived run in theaters, everyone involved can just move on. Industry insiders worry that unless something drastically changes, this film could go down as one of Disney's weakest performers.
Disney, despite losing over $1 billion on their last 4 movies, as they continue to shove woke politics into people's faces who just want to go to the movie, laugh, cry, and go home. Look, people don't want to be lectured when they're watching a movie, and they certainly don't want to be told that they're bad people. But that's what Disney continues to do.
At this stage, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot seem to have mentally checked out of any joint effort to rescue Snow White. Their mutual animosity cast a shadow over the final days of filming, the promotional tour, and even basic press photo ops. Whether the fallout stems from political disagreements, clashing personalities, or simply incompatible working dynamics, it's a textbook example of how behind-the-scenes tension can sabotage a film meant to bring a beloved story back to life.
She told Variety that I'm only responsible for what I feel, and then I'm responsible for how I act upon it, which makes no sense at all.
This wasn't how things were supposed to go. In the beginning, there was real excitement about a fresh, modern take on the classic tale, something that could resonate with today's audiences while still honoring the original's timeless charm. The cast was chosen to breathe new life into the narrative, but that initial optimism has been buried under controversial interviews, scrapped appearances, and a flood of bad press. Anticipation has turned into disillusionment for many who once looked forward to this remake. According to crew members, the day-to-day production was riddled with drama. Whenever a truce was found to get through a scene or attend an event, another argument wasn't far behind.
Now, for Disney, as you probably remember, all of this publicity, the Zegler interviews, the Daily Mail leak, caused a lot of unexpected, for them anyway, pre-production problems. People weren't supposed to see and understand just how unwatchable the new Snow White was going to be. It was supposed to be, kind of a surprise, but now there was no hiding it.
No real resolution ever took place, just brief lulls in the ongoing tension. The bitterness between Zegler and Gadot never fully subsided, and it showed, no matter how carefully PR tried to stage their appearances. The final straw appears to have been Rachel Zegler's refusal to attend the honorary event for Gal Gadot. For Gadot, it was a chance to show solidarity and professionalism, but Zegler held firm, insisting that the event didn't align with her political stance. That decision essentially ended any hope of salvaging their public image as a united team, replacing it with thinly veiled resentment during every promotional moment that followed.
I don't really care what happens with this movie. I really hope her career is pretty much over. I'd be thrilled to see that. I can't imagine. I mean, Christian, you tell me. But is she not seen as box office poison now because of all of her antics?
You know, it's kind of a mixed track record. She's still fairly young. Her West Side Story debut was not a hit, and that was a Spielberg movie, so that was kind of a surprise. But if you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or three times before hiring her. Listen, she's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage your work. She was plucked out of obscurity by Steven Spielberg. All you say is thank you, Mr. Spielberg, and you keep saying that for the next 50 years.
The marketing team has been scrambling ever since, forced to cancel event after event, each one a hit to the budget and the film's visibility. Behind every canceled press stop or photo call is a now familiar sense of dread. Will there be another meltdown? Will the two stars even show up? The underlying conflict continues to derail the film's promotional efforts and solidify the impression that its lead actresses are anything but united. it's become increasingly evident that this feud runs far deeper than petty arguments over script tweaks or the film's tone. What we're seeing now is a personal standoff, with each actress reportedly questioning the other's attitude and values, fueling an ongoing cycle of tension.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
I don't really care what happens with this movie. I really hope her career is pretty much over. I'd be thrilled to see that. I can't imagine. I mean, Christian, you tell me. But is she not seen as box office poison now because of all of her antics?
It's kind of a mixed track record. She's still fairly young. Her West Side Story debut was not a hit, and that was a Spielberg movie, so that was kind of a surprise. But if you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or three times before hiring her. Listen, she's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage your work. She was plucked out of obscurity by Steven Spielberg. All you say is thank you, Mr. Spielberg, and you keep saying that for the next 50 years.
According to insiders, Rachel Zegler demanded retakes that Gal Gadot believed were completely unnecessary, while Gadot allegedly brushed off Zegler's creative input, leading to on-set confrontations that disrupted the production schedule. That behind-the-scenes friction has now exploded into full view during the press tour. Within the entertainment industry, alarm bells are ringing. If this animosity continues, both actresses may face long-term consequences. Gal Gadot, despite her established success and loyal fan base, could still suffer reputational damage simply from being tied to a film marred by infighting. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler, still relatively new to the spotlight, risks being labeled difficult to work with, which could cause producers to hesitate before casting her in major future roles.
If you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or three times before hiring her. Listen,
whispers are already circulating that certain franchises are quietly reconsidering whether to collaborate with either actress anytime soon. Back in the editing room, the situation wasn't any better. Post-production teams were forced into damage control, trying to cobble together scenes from scattered, inconsistent takes. Several key moments reportedly lacked any real chemistry between the leads, making it hard to deliver the emotional resonance the script demanded. Reshoots attempted to salvage the situation, but the deeper issue wasn't in the performances. It was the underlying hostility, which no amount of editing could completely mask. Originally, Snow White was promoted as a bold reimagining of a timeless story, but that narrative has been completely eclipsed. Rather than headlines about a modern twist on a classic, the conversation has been hijacked by tales of on-set clashes, canceled appearances, and public boycotts.
Accusing Disney of inserting unnecessary feminism into classic fairy tales.
You should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
And not only are the dwarves gone in the remake, they've been replaced by what Disney is now calling magical creatures. Snow White and the 7 magical creatures. Disney wouldn't even cast people with actual dwarfism to play the roles of the 7 dwarves. And the new magical creatures are also completely computer generated.
Any hope Disney had of stirring meaningful discussion about the creative direction of the film has been buried beneath tabloid drama. Among the various theories about what went wrong, one stands out repeatedly: Rachel Zegler's insistence on positioning the film as a kind of social commentary, and Gal Gadot's vocal stance on international issues clashed from the very beginning. Neither star seemed willing to downplay their views for the sake of a united front. Once their ideological disagreements became public, every press event became a battleground, shifting the focus away from the film itself and toward their personal beliefs. For audiences, that's been enough to cool enthusiasm for the movie altogether. In an attempt to contain the damage, Disney's top brass reportedly tried to step in, scheduling private meetings, offering media training, and encouraging the actresses to stick to neutral talking points. But those plans unraveled quickly. The mutual resentment was too strong, and even the most carefully managed PR efforts couldn't paper over the cracks. Instead of celebrating a modern update to a classic fairy tale, coverage of the film now reads like a running commentary on a behind-the-scenes implosion.
And you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
If Disney wants to make more woke films that tank at the box office, they are more than welcome to do that, but maybe think of an original idea.
A few lessons for Disney. Number one, stop cannibalizing all your old IP. Like, it's really bad. It's really bad business. Number two, please stop changing all of the historic plots, which actually have meaning to generations of people, to instead become generic woke story about how woman leads revolutionary uprising and she don't need no man.
Now, as the premiere date draws near, no one's holding their breath for a last-minute reconciliation. The divide between Zegler and Gadot appears too deep, and public appearances are marked by either frosty civility or clear hostility. Fans have taken notice, with social media buzzing over which star is in the wrong and how their conflict could impact box office numbers. At this point, any attempt to fake a friendship would likely be seen as just that. Fake. The outlook for Snow White at the box office isn't looking any brighter. Early projections are dismal, with pre-sale numbers lagging behind even Disney's more lackluster live-action offerings. Industry analysts are starting to brace for the possibility that this film could rank among the studio's biggest misfires in recent memory, overshadowed by off-camera conflict rather than any creative merit it might still possess. That's particularly disheartening for the countless crew members, set designers, background actors, VFX teams who poured their energy into the project. Their efforts have been completely eclipsed by the ongoing feud between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. Little attention is being paid to the revamped visuals, the new soundtrack, or the film's fresh take on classic themes. Instead, headlines continue to revolve around the star's refusal to find common ground. By now, the film is burdened with a reputation that's hard to shake. The failure of Zegler and Gadot to present a united front has more or less derailed any hopes of a successful final marketing push.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
I'm a narcissist.
You are.
What could have been last-minute redemption via talk shows or press junkets has been mostly shelved, with insiders confirming that many of these opportunities were reduced or outright canceled to avoid further tension. Sure, there have been cases where troubled productions still managed to succeed thanks to the film's own strength, but this doesn't seem to be one of them. With countless reshoots, rumored weak performances, and a press cycle dominated by drama rather than storytelling, it's hard to imagine Snow White drawing in the kind of audience Disney hoped for. Most experts predict a disappointing theatrical run, followed by a quick shift to streaming in an effort to recoup what they can. This entire debacle may serve as a cautionary tale for future reboots of classic properties. In today's hyper-connected media landscape, personal drama can easily snowball into a full-blown PR disaster. What happened with Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot illustrates how personal and political differences, once kept behind closed doors, can spiral out of control and completely derail a film's message and momentum. Instead of generating excitement about a new vision for a beloved story, the marketing narrative has devolved into gossip-fueled coverage of two leads locked in an ongoing feud. For Disney, it's a nightmare scenario.
That is totally uplifting and the right way to be woke, Link, when you actually cancel the roles for the marginalized population because just putting them on screen is somehow racist.
So I remember back in 2023 when this was going on and all the little people making videos saying, well, wait, there's so few roles for us in Hollywood. We're being passed over for this. You could have cast seven little
Peter
people.
Dinklage.
Exactly. They're like, Peter Dinklage, you're rich. We're not. We're trying to be extras, or, we're in Johnny Knoxville's Jackass if we're lucky. And so for them, they're like, you're not going to cast us to be inclusive and progressive.
A Snow White remake that not only risks flopping financially, but also undercuts the studio's long-held reputation for wholesome, family-friendly entertainment. From the outside looking in, the damage may already be done. Zegler's defenders point fingers at Gadot's controversial international positions, while Gadot's supporters push back against Zegler's dismissive remarks about the original film. What's left is a deeply divided fan base, and a project that feels like it never had a fair shot. As a result, many moviegoers who might have eagerly shown up for a lighthearted, magical Disney experience are now holding back. The controversy engulfing Snow White has turned what should have been a charming fairy tale revival into something far more uncomfortable. Even if the film boasts high production quality and moments of creativity, it may not be enough to cut through the cloud of negativity dominating the conversation.
Now you have Rachel Zegler thinking, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, it's tacky, it's weird, we're going to change all that.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
With each day, the outlook continues to worsen. Neither Rachel Zegler nor Gal Gadot seems interested in backing down, and there's no sign of a last-minute PR miracle from Disney. All signs point to Snow White arriving in theaters under a very dark cloud. Once opening weekend numbers are in, the film's fate could be sealed. And if the turnout is weak, expect a rapid pivot to streaming, leaving behind nothing but the bitter memory of what might have been. This entire saga highlights a hard truth. Chemistry between lead actors is critical, especially for projects based on iconic stories with loyal fan bases. Without that unity, behind-the-scenes gossip becomes the dominant narrative, and that's exactly what happened here. The magic was buried under headlines about Rachel Zegler skipping Gal Gadot's ceremony, tense photo shoot arguments, and polarizing political statements that took center stage over the story itself. As things stand, the Zegler-Gadot feud may become the lasting legacy of this production, overshadowing the actual film for years to come. It could go down as one of Hollywood's more infamous cautionary tales, a major Disney remake undone by personal grudges and ideological clashes. Even after the film debuts, the public focus will likely remain on the off-screen drama. And when everyone knows the leads can barely stand to be in the same room, it's hard for audiences to just enjoy the finished product in a vacuum. The real tragedy is that Snow White had genuine potential. Early announcements hinted at a refreshing new angle on a classic, with a high-profile cast that seemed built for box office success. But instead, what we got was a headline-heavy disaster, a clear example of how internal strife, politicized messaging, and unchecked interviews can sink a promising film, regardless of how beloved the source material is. At this point, all that's left is to wait for the release and see if the film can defy the odds, either in theaters or through word of mouth on streaming. A handful of fans may still find value in the final product, but the shadow of this high-profile conflict will be hard to ignore. For Disney, and for the wider industry, Snow White may become a case study in how not to manage a remake of an iconic brand when the lead actors can't even pretend to get along. And for all the early hype, that enthusiasm has all but vanished, replaced with backlash, disappointment, and the sobering truth that even a beloved fairy tale can be undone by real-life drama.